Hello, welcome everybody to Tapping My Own Phone with Ron Whitehead. Yours truly, produced by my friend Shooter Russell. We're here at the Hermitage on Cherokee Road in the Highlands of Louisville, Kentucky. This video series, which Shooter brilliantly came up with the idea for, thank you Shooter, is intended Shooter throws a topic at me for every episode that I don't even know until we're here. I'm in front of the camera. Shooter asks me a question and I run with it. But it's more than that. Occasionally, I share with you a piece of my poetry or prose. And we cover the spectrum of topics from my Kentucky roots. I grew up on a farm in western Kentucky in Ohio County, where Bill Monroe birthed bluegrass music. And so for today's episode, I'd like to read from the new Mama, A Poet's Heart in a Kentucky Girl, a book I wrote with my mom. The hardback edition was just released by the new publishing house Transmission that Jen, Bug, and I have created. And Jen did all of the artistic production work on this beautiful full color hardbound limited edition book. And I think there are still a few copies of the hardbound left. We're working on the paperback edition, which will come out in the fall of 2015. And this piece is titled Moxley and Irene, Moonshine King, Burgoo Queen. Mama gave me a tin cup when I was a boy. Till I left home when I was 17, I wore a thin rope to hold my pants up. I've always been skinny. I kept my tin cup and a knife with a bottle opener on my rope. They both came in handy many times, including and especially my last visit with Moxley and Irene. I was 16, a year away from leaving home for good, leaving home forever. I'd come to visit Moxley and Irene traveling by boat alone. I didn't know how many more times I'd have this opportunity. It was a crisp, clear day in early September. The sad and glad of early fall filled me up. It felt good, but it ached with loneliness too. Some of you know that several miles southwest of Centertown, 27 miles from Owensboro, the self-proclaimed burgoo capital of the world, deep, and I mean deep, in the bottoms where the bobcats still live on an island on a tight curve of Green River, the deepest river in the world, with catfish that have swallowed children whole, the Green River, with nests of water moccasins in every cove on a tight curve of Green River, lived in a wicked, crooked dirt hut, old Moxley and his wife Irene. The island, called Toad's Island, rose peaking with a small hill above the green. It had flooded only once back in 37. Unlike most of the Irish and Scots in Ohio County, the fifth largest county and one of the poorest in Kentucky, home of Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music, resting across the Green River from Muhlenberg County in Paradise, unlike most of the Irish and Scots, Moxley's parents had come from Hungary and Irene's from Greece back in the 1800s. When I was a boy, I visited Moxley and Irene with Daddy or Granddaddy Dick. We stopped by after running trout lines. Some city people might call them trout lines, but we never caught no trout on them. We caught catfish, snapping turtles, snakes, and eels, all of which occasionally found their way into Irene's burgoo, the best and most peculiar, unlike any other burgoo in the world. Irene was the burgoo queen. Although few will admit it, folks from miles away, including all the way from Owensboro, eventually found their way to Toad's Island down on the Green River and borrowed the recipes which continued to be used on rare, private, and special occasions for Irene's burgoo and Moxley's moonshine whiskey. Moxley was the moonshine king. Moxley and Irene had an orchard and a garden, but Moxley always said he lived on snake, snapping turtle, possum, and moonshine whiskey. By the time I was 16, I'd seen him eating and drinking all of them more than once, and with his big red and purple nose, I figured he was telling the truth. He kept his moonshine still right in front of their hut. They had a one-eyed black cat with no tail called Spit and a three-legged dog called Tick. Irene, I guess, was probably a witch, but a decent one, and by the time I first met her, when I was a boy, she may have forgotten most of what she once knew, but she had remembered how to make burgoo. The most unusual and distinctively flavored burgoo I've ever tasted. Same was true of Moxley's moonshine. I can barely even approximate their magic recipes. I was a poor witness, especially once Moxley began pouring his moonshine, God's tears, into my tin cup. It was the smoothest hard liquor I've ever in my entire life tasted. My vision blurred as I watched Moxley on my left and Irene on my right. Sometimes they became one not too pretty person, but despite their strangeness, I always liked both of them, so no matter how ugly they looked as one person, it didn't matter. I didn't care. I just sat there watching and grinning and smelling while they brewed the burgoo and the moonshine. Moxley poured in spring water, which he collected running directly out of the side of their Toad's Island hill. He added pure cane sugar, cracked corn, and malt. He always cut the first gallon with water because it was so strong. It kicked harder than a mule or an utter sore milk cow. Sometimes he added burnt sugar and water to change the coloring. He did that for variety. While Moxley was cooking up his strange brew, my attention wandered back and forth, so I watched Irene cook her burgoo too. I watched her make burgoo several times over the years, and it was always different depending on what she had available. This particular time, the last time I saw her make it, when I was 16, she killed a chicken, snuck up behind it, and cut its head off before it knew what happened. Then she plucked it and tossed it in. Then instead of beef or pork, she added chunks of snapping turtle, possum, water moccasin, and eel. Even though fish isn't common to burgoo, I'm pretty sure, despite the moonshine I drunk, that she threw in several pieces of catfish. I brought her 2 rabbits I killed hunting with Daddy. I helped her skin them, then she threw them in, bones and all. Didn't even cut off their heads. Of course, the pot, which was on an open fire in front of the hut, was filled with water from the river. She also mixed in some dirty dishwater. For some reason I never discovered, before adding the water, she first placed river rocks in the bottom of the pot. Once the water was ready, she tossed in tomatoes, potatoes, onions, garlic, cabbage, peppers, carrots, corn, beans, peas, ketchup, salt, pepper, thyme, vinegar, sauces, homemade red wine, plenty of Moxley's moonshine, pinches of a variety of herbs. Then she said words I didn't understand, maybe Greek, the language of her ancestors, and she said them like she was casting a spell. It was spooky the way she chanted those words, getting a glazed, faraway look in her dark eyes. Good Lord, I knew it was going to be good, and it always was. She cooked it for hours. I'm not sure how many hours, because I passed out. I did. I passed out. When I woke up, the sun had set. It was a beautiful starry night. The full moon was rising. A pack of wild dogs was barking way off in the distance, upriver. Crickets, katydids, frogs, and lightning bugs brightened the night, providing a brilliant sound and light show. Irene and Moxley handed me food and drink, burgoo and moonshine, best food in the world, bar none. We stayed up late into the night, sharing stories, listening close to each other, to the bobcat's mournful wail, listening to the spirits walking the earth late at night when the veil between worlds disappears. The next morning, just after daybreak, a buzzing fly woke me up. All 3 of us had fallen asleep on the ground up close to the fire, which had fallen to a dull ember, almost out. The sun was cracking the sky over the trees east of the green. I rose, walked silently to my boat, and glided away. It was my final visit, the last time I saw my dear ancient friends, Moxley and Irene, Moonshine King, Burgoo Queen.